I think if you're at Michigan, you hate to lose to Ohio State. And I think if you're at Ohio State, you hate to lose to Michigan.
And that's what makes this rivalry so much fun. They hate to lose. Lloyd Carr's plate full of expectation. You know, it's either Big Ten title or bust for the Wolverines.
There's no question, especially this year, the way that they've performed. You know, across the sideline, you think Jim Tressel would love nothing better than to stick it to that school up north. We say hello again to a third member of our party, John Chandler, live in Cleveland. And John, give us a little analysis, what you think. Break it down for us as only you can.
Well, I try. I do my best. And like Keith Jackson would probably say, oh, I think them Buckeyes might be in a whole heap of trouble here. And we're not talking just about the football game. Coach Tressel and Ohio State up to their sweater vests in an NCAA investigation this week. Yes, Michigan week feels a little different down in Columbus. It'll feel even worse if the Wolverines earn a Rose Bowl berth at the Shoe.
It's interesting, the boys from East Lansing opened up the door for Michigan to get to the Rose Bowl last week. That was a big shock, wasn't it?
Yeah, that surprised us all, didn't it? Former Buckeye quarterback Kirk Herbstreit, seen right there, now an analyst for ESPN Game Day and Sports Radio 1460 The Fan in Columbus. The airwaves this week were full of just as much talk about the future as the game, so I asked Herbstreit to shed a little light on Ohio State's big picture.
It's been a tough couple weeks for Ohio State, their fans, the players, the coaches, the administrators. You know, I was really pleased with the way they played against Purdue. I thought, you know, despite the 4 turnovers, they played with a lot of heart and a lot of character. And, you know, now everything that's been going on, despite, you know, the losses that are piling up, the distractions off the field, now it's Michigan week. And now you try to put it all together and hope this team can play their best game up to this point, because it'll take that to beat Michigan.
And in talking to a lot of players this week, they've emphasized that you know, this is a game that is easy to focus for. It's still got to be some kind of a distraction. You know, and Troy Smith in particular talked about, there's a sense of pride out there. I mean, you see Ohio State and you see it talked about negatively.
I think the losses are probably more of a distraction than Maurice Claret and what's happening with that story. The NCAA has come in this week, and I really think Ohio State is frustrated with the season they're having, and I think, if anything, that weighs on their mind more than, let's say, off-the-field problems. With all that said, if they beat Michigan, if they put it all together for 3.5 or 4 hours on Saturday, it's almost like this will be a year where they showed a lot of grit and a lot of determination, and let's move on to recruiting to try to get better. You lose the game, you still go to a bowl game, and there's all of a sudden a dark cloud that kind of hovers over the program for the rest of the offseason. So this is a big game.
Sure, and just recruiting-wise, you mentioned it. I mean, this scandal, or whatever you want to call it, it probably will affect recruiting to some extent.
Yeah, I think so. That and the way Ohio State has played this year, I've heard back from a lot of the recruiting experts that, you know, there are a lot of people who want to go to Ohio State because it's Ohio State. A lot of people love Jim Tressel. They want to play for Jim Tressel. But all of a sudden, all these distractions, you got to think other teams are going to try to use that against Ohio State. And it's just going to hopefully come down. It's one of those things that you hope the NCAA comes in, finds whatever they have to find, and they move on. Because that way you know that Ohio State can get back to doing what they do best, and that's recruiting great players to go out and win games.
Was this a season that maybe had to happen, you think, for Jim Tressel in terms of a 6-4, in terms of getting new players in and younger players game time, playing time?
Yeah, they lost 14 players to the NFL last year, and I think they were affected more on defense than they were on offense. Their defense is young. You can tell they're playing guys now with injury that probably aren't ready to be on the field yet, but they have to go with them because that's all they have. I think that from a growth standpoint, it'll be interesting to see this team in the offseason, how they try to improve. Do they bring in any new schemes offensively to try to attack in a different way, try to utilize guys like Santonio Holmes and Ted Ginn? Every offense in America would be like this. Can we have those guys? Yeah. And they've got to come up with a way next year to utilize these players instead of waiting till 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 10. Try to come up with a scheme on 1st and 10 to try to get them the ball in different ways.
Well, and they showed a little bit of that, I think, against Purdue.
Running
a little bit of option, utilizing the speed of Troy Smith at quarterback.
Yep. It's kind of in the growth stage.
Yeah,
you know, you'd like to see, and a lot of that, I think, with Jim Tressel, he believes in having a veteran quarterback, a quarterback that he knows he can count on to make good decisions. When you're turning the ball over 4 times, that's Coach Tressel's worst nightmare. He'd rather lose in a different way if he's got to lose a game than turning the ball over. He'd rather hand it off every play and win than to have 4 turnovers. And that's probably something they're going to try to obviously correct.
Our thanks to Kirk Herbstreit for taking some time. Wouldn't you love to log his frequent flyer miles? Well, I have to laugh when people say the Buckeyes have nothing to lose this afternoon, you know, other than just the football game against their rival. Forget playing spoiler. Beating Michigan, that should be motivation enough this afternoon for the Scarlet and Gray. Still to come on the Clash in Columbus, we crash heads with former Buckeye linebacker Chris Spielman. You know he's ready for this showdown, folks. Plus, where did Ted Ginn get those moves? Well, same place he got his name, from his dad. Next on the program, Glenville's coach breaks down film of his favorite Buckeye. And they hit a home run with Ginn Jr., so what blue chip recruit is next? We'll get the word and then some from WKNR's Kenny Rhoda. Find out why there's no shortage of talent at C-Bus. That's when we return. Won't you return with us?
And welcome back. Well, imagine being a father and watching your son make plays on the football field. That's exactly what Ted Ginn Sr. is doing this past year, watching his son Ted Jr. You'll be interested to know, watching game film with him this week, how a father watches his son perform.
All right, Ted, tell me when you see him, when you're watching your son get these kickoff and punt returns.
Okay, just like this one right here, you know, he when he saw this gap, he just trusted his speed there, you know, and, you know, once he see a little crease, he's gone. You know.
The thing that you talked about before was the fact that sometimes it's so effortless with him. It didn't look like he's running fast, but until you're on the field, you really don't realize how fast he is.
You know, because he's so smooth when he runs, you know. And like here, you know, that ball wasn't high enough, you know. And it was like on the line drive, you know he's going to outrun the coverage. So he looks for that.
Now how about this on this reverse?
Okay, he know that defense man cannot catch it. So, you know, once he get around the corner, then he want to use his shoes. You know, and that's what we talk about all the time, you know, being in position to use his shoes.
Now here, you knew that this was, he was going to take this one back.
Oh yeah, because he know they you know, line drive, he looked for those. You know, he looked for that.
Now his cousin's out there, 28, trying to catch him.
Yeah, Michael Bell trying to catch him. That's his cousin.
Futile effort.
Yeah.
He is definitely the Magnificent Seven. Speaking of another guy that's magnificent, we bring in the roadman from WKNR, Kenny Rhoda, joining us, and Ted Ginn Jr. What a special talent.
Mach 7, Magnificent 7, Mach 7, the speed, number 7. I tried to buy a number 7 jersey down here, couldn't find them. They're selling like hotcakes, so I guess I have to go back to Cleveland maybe and try and find one there.
You've got interesting perspective. You covered the Buckeyes all week during your show.
Right.
If I'd have told you that 14 players would have went to the NFL and they still would have had a chance to get 7 wins, would you have bought into that?
You know what? Yes, simply because of the recruiting class that they brought in. Ted Ginn Jr., one of the top guys. They had a lot of freshmen, a lot of playing time this year, and that was key. That'll help for down the road. Is it a disappointing season compared to the last 2? Absolutely. But still, this is their national championship today. They beat Michigan. Right. Those 4 losses are forgotten.
Man, give me the key to today's game. They haven't been able to run the football all year. Can they get it done?
They need to get outside the tackles, Troy Smith option, play action, bootleg, waggles, get the ball in Ted Ginn's hand, and don't give up any big plays, and special teams will come into play. Maybe a Nugent field goal at the buzzer.
All right, give me your prediction. Who's going to win it?
My heart says take Ohio State in a close one. My head says Michigan, too much talent. But, hey, I'm wearing the scarlet and gray. I'm going to go make noise and do what I can to help the Buckeyes win.
Now, how about the future? What's it looking? Give me some Rivals.com.
Very, very bright. They've got a lot of young kids that will be visiting here today, and they have a very good recruiting class, one of the top 5 right now in the country. So the future's very bright for Ohio State.
You hear that?
Yeah, I hear it.
Trouble's coming.
It's coming, baby.
Kenny Rhoda, thanks so much
for
your time, man. We'll be back talking to Chris Spielman. That's a guy that knocked somebody in the mouth today. Be sure to join us, folks. We're back live here with the Clash in Columbus here on News Channel 5. Buckeyes, Michigan, ready to get it on for the 101st time. As you see, fans are starting to flock in. Some are still tailgating. Sued is what's called that 11th hour tailgating. They got to get as much food and adult beverages in them before they go into the game. Welcome back, folks. We're live here. Chris Miller, Sue-Ann Robeck, and I think there's a guy that wishes he could be playing today.
You know it. Chris Spielman, one of the fiercest linebackers in Buckeye history. He's still so passionate when he talks about that team up north. We sat down with him earlier in the week when he was talking Buckeye football on the radio. Paul Kiska has more.
You can't afford to turn the ball over in the red zone.
His opinions are as hard-hitting as the stinging hits he delivered on the football field.
What must be done is we cannot rely on just blitzing.
His name is a living, breathing tribute to football toughness. Chris Spielman loved being a Buckeye linebacker, but he lived for the clash with Michigan.
They have an opportunity to sign their name to history. I mean, a lot of times players are remembered about how they play in Michigan games. You're remembered as a player as what's your record in Michigan. In fact, two people, random people, asked me yesterday when I was doing something with my kids, hey, what was your record against Michigan? So that's how you're defined in the state of Ohio.
It is not a cliche to say the records mean nothing when Ohio State plays Michigan. It's the truth. Ohio State has lost 4 games this year. There has been controversy off the football field. But today, they can ruin Michigan's season. And in Ohio history, we'll remember that. So will the fans. Every year, this game just feels different.
There's a different feel. There's a different atmosphere inside the hotel, inside the stadium, and going to the stadium, because you know this is something that's special to a lot of people. And you understand the good fortune that you have to play in this game.
Chris Spielman's most special memory of this rivalry was 1987. Earl Bruce was fired the week before the big game, but would finish the season as the head coach on the sidelines. His team rallied behind their head coach, giving him a hero send-off by beating Michigan.
And we beat them up there and carried Coach Bruce off the field. I think that kind of was a nice close to difficult circumstances for Coach Bruce's career. And obviously it was great for me to go out a winner and beat Michigan in Michigan.
So for 4 hours today, from Columbus to Cleveland, across this land, football fans will watch the game and pays tribute to everything college football is about.
It epitomizes what college football is and should be.
For the Clash in Columbus, Paul Kiska, News Channel 5.
All right, thanks, Paul. Well, for Michigan, the road to the Rose Bowl travels through Columbus today.
That's right. Can you say Buckeyes knock off the Wolverines? Well, coming up, we'll give you the sights and sounds and Sue Ann and I's prediction of the game, as well as Buckeye fans get that last hour tailgating in before the game, 1 p.m. right here on News Channel 5. We'll be back in a moment, folks. Now, welcome back live to our Clash of Columbus here in the Horseshoe. And now it's that time of the show where Sue Ann and I have to give you our final predictions. I'll go first, folks. Listen, let's be honest. Ohio State can't run the football. They haven't been able to run the football all year. They've had to use big plays on special teams at Mike Nugent. 27-14 Michigan wins. I'm sorry.
Well, I've seen a lot of games here. I know Ohio State, if they can keep it close, I think they can actually get the win. But I think Michigan might be too much for them. I'm going with 35-13 Michigan over Ohio State.
Wow. Hopefully we're both wrong. Now, be sure to join us tonight in our special edition of McDonald's Sports Saturday. We'll have all things Buckeyes covered from both sides, Michigan as well as Ohio State. That's going to do it for us. But first, we leave you with the sights and sounds of everything leading up to the big game. It's the 101st rivalry of the greatest rivalry in sports. Good night, everybody.